self, and I believe a lot of wisdom from God. So that is what, just in case you're wondering, that is what qualifies me to be able to talk to you tonight. And of course, listen, every time we have these sessions and you all open up at the end, I am enlightened and I learn something new. I certainly don't know everything. I have not, there are people who, have much more experience than me in certain areas. And so I'm always really excited and happy and very willing. This is not the type of forum where we don't want anybody to talk or to give their input. Very open to hear what you have to say, ladies. So when I'm finished, I'm going to open for questions and for you to add to anything that I said, or you can ask questions. Feel free to be open. That's the kind of session that we want, right? So I'm going to get into tonight's session is how to break the cycle of toxic relationships. Those type of relationships that you just keep going back to. It's not good for you. You're not experiencing, it's no longer a pleasurable thing. It's more just a make up and break up kind of relationship. And you want to get out, but you keep going back, right? And that's a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people like that who have been stuck in that type of cycle for years, right? Now, if you are married and your marriage is unhealthy, or you have an unhealthy relationship with your husband and your marriage feels like it's toxic, the advice that I'm giving you today will help as well, right? Definitely. But your solution is not going to be the same as somebody who's not married, right? My advice to the unmarried person would be to leave that person right out. Thank God you didn't marry them, right? Thank God you're not married. Walk away. But that would not be my advice to someone who is married. So, but however, what I'm going to go through tonight is going to help you to cope in a relationship. And then there's some marriages too that Christians don't like it when you say this, it's like you're cussing them. But there's some marriages that do need to end. I said it. Yeah. Some people fight and stay in a marriage for years. They take abuse. They allow their husband to horn them. They know their husband being unfaithful. Some people stay together just because they feel divorce is like an unpardonable sin. You literally living in a house where you hate each other. The children unhappy. It's always toxic. And nobody wants to make a change, and basically you're living a life of, just dysfunction. And you stay together, not trying. It's one thing if your life is like, if you're married, life is like that, and you're looking for solutions and you're trying. But some people actually settle for that and they say, well, you know what? I ain't getting divorced. I'm married. I will ride this out. And they're not happy. They don't experience freedom. Let me tell you something, ladies. That's not, God don't want you to be married so bad that you live the rest of your life in pain and turmoil and dysfunction, and your children grow up unhappy. Your children never see all your happy one day of your life. That's not God's plan for you, right? So I said it, some marriages do need to end. Yeah. Don't Thank God we're on Zoom so nobody could stone me. Right. So let me get into tonight, right? So in preparing this, there were really two major things that came up, right? Two major things that we need to do, right? That actually make up for 10. Let's say I had a list of 10. These two, I think, can actually solve that problem, right? That cycle. Because, to be honest, if it was a matter of, yes, letting go is hard. If it was a matter of just taking steps like, okay, let's say you're financially dependent on him and that's why you keep staying, and so you go get a job or whatever, sometimes even those things don't help, because that might help you, yes, to get out of that relationship. But if you don't fix the things that I'm going to address today, you will go into another relationship and you would find that it has the same issues, that you end up in the same cycle. So the two things that I'm going to address today, is all about you and things that you have to do to ensure that no matter who you're with, it's not a matter of just getting out of this cycle. It's never getting into another cycle or into another relationship like the one that you're in right now, right? So let me ask a question. Let me see in the chat, ladies, those of you who would consider yourself in a dysfunctional type relationship right now, you know to yourself that this is not it. This is not how it's supposed to be. If that is you, it could be a marriage as well. If that is you, just indicate, say yes, definitely me, and I'm married, right? So Asha, please, just making sure you know, I am not saying that because you're in a dysfunctional marriage, you have to leave your husband. No. Remember the things we're going to do dealing with that. So plenty means, oh my gosh. So a lot of women here in toxic, dysfunctional relationships, right? And so that's good. Some people are in toxic, dysfunctional relationships and they don't even know. They don't even recognize it. He's cheating and making me look like I'm crazy. Yeah. Right? So all of those things, right? So lots of people in a toxic relationship or in some sort of dysfunctional relationship, and you know in your heart, this ain't right. This can't be it, right? So the first thing, right? And ladies, some of what I'm going to say may offend you, right? Yes, there was, yeah. Some of what I'm going to say may, and I'm going to use the word offend. You know, when you have to do, anytime you have to do introspection, and anytime you start to look within and you find issues with yourself, it's always hard to face failures within. It's always hard to look within and say, oh my gosh, I'm at fault. I'm guilty of this, or I'm not doing a good job here, right? But that's the first place we have to look. So the number one thing, ladies, right? So I'm starting. The number one thing that you have to do to break an unhealthy or toxic cycle or relationship in your life, number one, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to look at what is your contribution in this toxic relationship. What is your contribution to the cycle, right? Recognize that you have to recognize it, right? First of all, but I think a lot of you all came out and said, yes, I'm in an unhealthy relationship or toxic relationship. So it means those of you who indicated that you recognized it, right? There's some women who dysfunction is so normal to them because perhaps that's how they grew up, that's the environment they grew up in. So dysfunction is actually where they function best because it's all they know, right? They grew up in a home where it was cussing each other, it's like normal, right? Or they saw their father or their mother leave and come back, leave, go, come back, and that's normal to them. And so they grow up, end up in a relationship and do the same things that they saw, and they don't see it as dysfunctional until it starts to hurt so much, or it starts to cause so much pain, or you start to see so many side effects of this dysfunction that you realize, I can't live like this anymore. Some people, only when it starts affecting their children, or only when it starts affecting their health. Some people will go on with the crap until it starts affecting their health, or maybe their finances, or whatever. It takes some sort of tragic situation for them to recognize that this is actually a toxic, dysfunctional relationship. But many people recognize, many don't. But the first step is actually recognizing, right? And ladies, please listen. And if you have to take notes, take notes. I want you to really pay attention, and I want you to be able to get the help that you need so that you're not wasting years of your life in an unhealthy relationship that will never be fixed, right? Some of you are hoping and praying that he would change and things will fix, and it's been 10 years and he's still the same man. It's time to break the cycle, right? I want you all, ladies, you can never get your time back. This is something that I always say. Time is precious. You cannot get it back. Those 5 years that you wasted with this man, or 10 years, or even 3, you cannot get them back. They are years that you wasted. Yes, you would have picked up some, hopefully, I pray God, some kind of wisdom along the way or whatever, but it's time, precious time that you're wasting trying to fix something that cannot be fixed or shouldn't be fixed, right? So you have to recognize, ladies, listen, ask yourself these questions for me, right? What is my contribution in this, right? What is my contribution? How to tell it's toxic and dysfunctional? I think I said that already. If you're not sure, it's going to cause you pain and start to show up in all different areas of your life, right? But ladies, you have to take personal responsibility for your part in this relationship. You have to take personal responsibility. It cannot be just on him. That's impossible. A relationship involves two people. And today we're talking about romantic relationships, love, marriage, dating, but this can apply for any kind of toxic relationship that you have. It could be a toxic relationship with their parents, a sibling, right? Your child, right? So this applies to any toxic relationship. You have to take personal responsibility for the part that you are playing. And ladies, this is the part that I say sometimes, it could sound a bit offensive to you, but you have to stop playing the victim, right? As long as you have choice, ladies, as long as you have a choice in the matter, then you are not really a victim, right? If you are tied up in a basement with duct tape over your mouth, you're a victim, right? Now, this what I'm saying here, it applies to somebody who is in a physically abusive relationship too, but that's a whole other ball game, right? That's a whole other. This is not. I'm not necessarily dealing here with physical abuse, right? I'm not dealing with physical abuse. I'm talking about people who are in a toxic emotional cycle. I mean, abuse could be a part of it, right? But that's a whole other thing, right? But ladies, you have to stop um portraying yourself and fooling yourself into thinking that you're a victim and that there's nothing. You're trapped in this cycle, that you're trapped. You're trapped by choice, right? I don't know, maybe at the end somebody could say they disagree with me there, but you cannot call yourself a victim as long as you still have choice. If somebody's threatening your life, then I could understand. That's a whole other set of dynamics in play. If you're talking about an abusive man who's threatening your life, threatening your children, you'd have to go about things differently, right? But we're not talking about that type of situation. Or you know the kind of toxic situation I'm talking about, right? Um, so if you have a choice, you're not a victim, right? So I want you to ask, so stop the blame, right? Ladies, you cannot control any other human being, right? We can control our children to a point because we can manhandle them, right? I used to like when I could take up my daughter and put her in her crib or put her somewhere in a corner and say, stay there, right? And take away things from her because she behaving bad and take, nah, you can't play with that, you can't eat that, you're not getting that, whatever, right? But from the time somebody becomes an adult and they come into their own and they have their own opinions and their own mind and they make it, you cannot control any human being, ladies, right? I would love to know if any one of you here is able to control your man. If your answer is yes, then you are doing something wrong. It's not a feather in your cap, right? Because you're not supposed to want to control any human being. The only person, ladies, that you can control, that you could have control over the choices that are made, decisions, what you do, what you eat, is you, right? So this is why I say before we even start to take steps that deal with outside things, right? You have to deal with you and what is happening inside. We have to figure out tonight, ladies, what is keeping you, I won't say control, but able to stop and change the decisions, of course. But that could be control depending on how you look at it. But no, I mean, stating your opinion in a relationship and somebody taking your advice is a very healthy thing. Nothing unhealthy about that, right? Um, so ladies, before the night is over, I want you all to be able to recognize what's happening inside of you that's causing you to stay in a toxic relationship. It's not anything that's happening on the outside. And believe it or not, don't get vexed with me, it's actually not him causing you to stay either. You staying because it's you, right? So you're not a victim, right? If I could have hear all the voices, I'll tell you all to repeat with me, I am not a victim. I have a choice in this matter, right? So the truth is, ladies, right? This is another one. I'm so glad we're behind a screen here. If you find that if you find that you keep having the same type of experiences, the same type of toxic relationship every time you move on to someone else, right? It could be, ladies, it just could be that you are the toxic one, that you are the dysfunctional one, If you've had 3 relationships and all of them almost mirrored each other, same set of circumstances, whatever, or 1 or 2 relationships, the same thing, 3, perhaps, and you thinking, well, it's always the man's fault. And women and ladies, don't get vexed with me, please. I love all you and I'm here to help, right? But women do tend to take on the kind of victim mentality and they blame the other person, right? They blame the other person. They blame the man in this for what they're going through. And they don't like to take personal responsibility. But if this is happening to you over and over, ladies, right? If it's been 2, 3, 4, 5 relationships and all of them are toxic, you experience the same thing, dysfunction and all, it could be that you are the toxic one, right? That is, Kavita, commendable. If you are started looking within and even asking that question, could it be me? That is very commendable. And it's actually the start of healing, right? Um, you might actually be the perpetrator and not the victim, right? You might actually, and I have actually seen this in live counseling with people where you talk to listen, it happens so often. Women are the ones who reach out first. It's very rare. And ladies, you tell me if I'm right here, where a man will pick up himself and say, I go in and talk to a counselor. I don't know about all that, but I don't know many men that would do that, right? They like to keep their business private. They want to talk to nobody. They feel I could handle it, or they rather talk to a partner or whatever, right? Men are not the ones that reach out. So women over the years have been the ones that reach out to me. And of course, when you're reaching out to a counselor for help, every woman presents themselves as a victim. They give the story, and at the end of the story, I see them as the victim, and I see the man as the one that's guilty, right, of whatever the dysfunction is. Until I speak to the man, I'm not saying all ladies, but it happens a lot, right? Until I speak with the man and I hear his side of the story. And then when you get them together, is another story, right? So, ladies, it is really hard for us as human beings, women and men, to present yourself as the one at fault, to say that I'm the one at fault here. I'm making all these mistakes. That's very difficult for people to do. Very difficult, right? But it's actually the point at which your life can turn around. If you can come to the place in your life where you recognize that I am the one at fault here. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I have this wrong mindset, whatever. Um, right, yeah. Um, it's the start of a new season of a change in cycle, of a break in cycle, right? Um, right. So that's the first thing, to recognize, to look within, ladies, try to figure out what is your part in this thing, because you have a part. You cannot take yourself out of it totally. You cannot. You have a part to play, right? Um, Something is making you leave and something makes you want to come back, right? So you have a part. So ask yourself this question, ladies, literally, even if you have to write it down, not tonight, at some point, write it down now and ask yourself these questions, right? What motivates me to stay? What motivates me to leave in the first place? What is the trigger? So what triggers me to leave? Because cycles mean this is something that, you break up, you make up, you break up, you make up, you say you're done, you come back, you try, right? What is always the breaking point? What's the trigger? What breaks me? What makes me say I'm gone, I done? And then what makes you decide to go back, to try again, to give it another go, right? Ladies, you have to identify these triggers. What motivates you to stay? What motivates you to leave, right? I want to suggest that you go as far as to even write them down, to become intentional. Actually, writing things down, it makes a big difference, actually. It's like taking what's in here, well, not in here, what's in here in your heart, and you're able to see it on paper, right? And it's a difficult thing sometimes to do, to actually read it, right? Because you realize that, I might think I have it together, but I'm actually broken and empty in certain areas in my life, and I need help as well, right? So write it down. What are your triggers? What motivates you to stay? What motivates you to go? Um, and start to look within, right? Um, I don't only want you to write down what motivates and what's the triggers. I also want you have to be intentional, ladies, right? We're still on number one. What you also need to do, let me give you an example of a, I wonder if there's a good example for it. Yeah. Okay. Let's say an example of something that triggers you to, let's say, come back. Let's say you say done, and you leave, right? You say this time. And every time you leave and you break up, you say this time is it, right? But yeah, let's say the trigger for you, that the thing that always gets you to come back is when he says, well, if you don't come back, I'm not going to support you financially. I'm going to cut off this or that. Let's say you all have children and he threatens, you can't see the children, excuse me, or whatever it is, right? Like he threatens to basically pull back things from you, right? And you are not in a financial situation to, let's say, take care of yourself right now, at least not the way you want to, right? And you know that that's the thing that always makes you go back. Many women, ladies, many women stay in toxic relationships because that man is their source of bread and butter at the end of the day. That man supports them financially. Um, and when they think of leaving him, you know, they start to think of all the negatives, like how I'm gonna live, where I go eat, where I go drive, who would drop me here, who would drop me there. You start to think about all those things, right? So if that is the thing that motivates you to stay or to come back, let's say you muster up the courage to leave and he start to threaten you with all these things, right? Um, you need to be very intentional. So what I would suggest to you is that you, not even in the situation, right? You know the things that will come up. Let's say you're in the relationship right now. It's a cycle. So you actually know what to expect, and you know what is going to happen. Well, I hopefully, ladies, you do. Because if you're in a cycle and the same thing has been happening, let's say 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, this cycle, break up, get together, break up, get together, are done, you come back, whatever, right? If you have actually made no change internally or even externally, ladies, it's going to happen again. The definition they say of a mad person is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It's inevitable. Once no change has been made, especially changes inside of you, like who you are, it's going to happen again. So you need to put things in place, ladies, and you need to understand what triggers this me going back, and put things in place to become in those areas self-sufficient, or to at least have a plan. You may not be be able to just go out and get a job and all of a sudden you're making money in 2 weeks you get a job that's making it. No. But at least have a plan of action. And I'm saying write it down, right? And if you are not intentional, ladies, you are going to just end up in this cycle for until something tragic happens and you say, well, okay, this is it. And we don't want it to get to that, right? For some women, I was actually talking to somebody um a couple of days ago, and she told me that her relationship, but she's describing her relationship as very much like what we're talking about: cycles, fighting, cussing out, whatever. Um, he would threaten to hit her. He might have pushed her once or twice, but never actually hit her, right? But it was always a cycle: she leaving, he leaving, all just real dysfunction, right? And the trigger, the thing that caused her that pushed her over the edge and caused her to end the cycle was the first day he actually hit her. He actually hit her so hard that she fell to the ground. And she is not a small person, right? And she said she fell to the ground. He hit her so hard that she saw black for a while, like her vision was black for a while. And she opened her eyes and she wasn't seeing. And then eventually she started seeing. But she said when she caught herself, right? I was really proud of her. I mean, I'm not perfect, ladies, right? I'm not perfect, right? I was really proud of her. She said when she got strength and she get up, she got something and she hit him, right? And he actually was probably out for a little while. I'm not laughing. I'm not making fun. Violence is not good. You don't ever resort to violence, like ever, right? But when she caught herself, she retaliated, but she left, and that was it for her, right? She was like, okay, that was it for her. But for some women, it does not end there. For some women, it doesn't end there. That's not the end for them. because he would come with all these apologies and excuses, or maybe threats, either one. Some come with the offering you the world, or some come with threats, and the woman stays in that relationship, right? But you don't want it to get to there, ladies, which is why we having a session like this tonight, right? So you have to be intentional. You have to know when he's what is going to trigger you. You know what he's going to say. You know what he's going to try. You know it because he's doing it all the time, right? And you have to when it comes up, you have to be prepared, right? And you know that, okay, I can handle myself here. He's not going to get me. For some women, it's a simple thing as what triggers them: apologies, love. They will come and become super affectionate. They will apologize. They would buy you gifts, bring flowers, take you out on a trip, take whatever you want to do to get you to forget the crap that just happened. And for some women, that's sufficient. But ladies, if he hasn't really, and listen, saying sorry, it's literally just words. Some people have to hear those words, I'm sorry. You could keep your I'm sorry. I want to see a change. I want to see a difference in how you behave, right? And so if the person is just butting you, yeah, manipulating you with all these gifts and love and showering you with love and what they call it, love bombing and all this kind of thing, right? And that is sufficient for you, then listen, you're in trouble. You're gonna be stuck in that cycle, right? And so you need to identify your triggers, ladies. Write it down. You need to be prepared so that when he comes, you know you're not standing for it this time. You're gone, right? Um, and that way it's going to help you to feel more. If you have a plan of action, you feel more in control, right? Now, this might sound like a weird thing, but somebody we were talking the other day, and somebody we were talking about, like, Trinidad full of crime and all kind of thing, and I think it was a self-defense talk that came up. And my husband was telling somebody, I can't remember who it was, right? That listen, if somebody come up to you, he said, if a man come up to you and he come and he trying to attack you, whatever, and you have, let's say, a key in your hand, right? And your key is one of those keys that come out. Take the key, stick it in his eye, something. Don't just start a ball and be frantic. He was like, try something to get him, it might not get him down, but it might distract him enough for you to run. Do something. And the person said, I can never do that. I can't stick a key in somebody's eye. And so I was like, even if your life, if your life depends on it. And she's like, yeah, I might want to in the moment, but I don't know if I actually could, right? And so I was telling them that for me, I mean, I don't know if this is gonna sound like a slightly psychotic or something, but I have prepared myself mentally to defend myself in certain situations, right? And how have I prepared myself? I've pictured myself doing it. I don't know if it's not sounding psychotic, right? So something I would always tell myself, right? And my husband would always say too, Nix, if you're on the road late, right? And somebody come in front of your car trying to come to you or whatever, don't play stupid. You're in a car. Once your door's locked, mash X. If you had to knock the person down, knock them down, right? For many people end up letting people come in the car because they freeze. You in a metal car with glasses up and you secure, and you freeze and you fright. You don't know what to do, right? You mash X. So I have actually visualized it. I hope I'm not sounding psychotic, right? But I've visualized it. And I think for me, the only way to actually prepare myself to, if I have to defend myself in that way, is to see myself actually doing it, right? And so I use that example for you ladies, right? If you are not intentional, if you all you're thinking about is how I could get back with this man, how it could be different this time, rather than thinking, what can I do to prevent myself from going back into this cycle? And you picture ways to get yourself better. Actually, in your mind, start, instead of just thinking about him and you're missing him and you're missing his sex and oh gosh, what I could do without him? He doesn't, right? Start to picture yourself free, single, away from him, living your life. Picture yourself with something better in the future, right? Because if it's just all about how we're gonna make this toxic thing work again, you'll just keep going back, right? So you have to be intentional. You have to look within, ladies. Um, and you remember you cannot control anybody except you, right? And you have to take personal responsibility, right? Um, Okay, in the car, but it did not write. Give me 1 second, ladies. Just one teeny second. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm back. Right, sorry about that. Yeah, right. So that was number one. Number one has to deal. It's all about you and what you can do to what you need to do to recognize and actually start to make those first steps internally. Number two, I do believe is going to take up the rest of the night. It is very important, ladies. I want you to pay attention. This is going to help you in every area of your life, right? Every single area of your life, right? So take it in, right? For you to break any cycle in your life, you have to, ladies, figure out what is the root cause that keeps you returning to something that is unhealthy, to something that could be potentially dangerous, to something that is dysfunctional and something that is toxic. Remember, every time you go back, you're not going back to something good. You're not going back to something that is blessing your life. You're not going back to something that is giving you joy and happiness. You are going back to something that is actually causing you hurt and pain, and you're doing it over and over. You go back and you enjoy moments of pleasure, moments of happiness, right? This is something that always confuses me with people when they talk. They break up 10 times before, and the 11th time, right? They have the same little few moments of everything going good. They would actually tell you, yeah, everything going good, everything going good for the while. They actually saying the words, everything going good for the while. They know it's not going to last, right? But something within, it's not something without, right? On the outside, keeps them going back to that dangerous, toxic, unhealthy relationship, right? We ladies, we have to identify what is the root, right? Identifying and understanding the root issue will bring freedom that could never be found by just dealing with the symptoms or dealing with the fruit, right? If you have a tree, picture yourself as a tree, ladies, right? That is rooted in something. You have roots, right? And the roots are inside your heart. And those roots got there from, we're going to get to how those roots got there, right? So you're a tree, you have roots, our roots in our heart, right? Sometimes we think that we could fix issues in our lives by just trimming branches, right? So, okay, this problem come up, I'll just trim it here. I'll just trim here, trim there, right? But what actually happens, just like a tree, when you trim branches, it's actually sprout back up and even more, right? Because you are not, the only way to make sure that a tree is dead is to uproot it. You have to deal with the root, right? And many of you have been in these cycles because you are not dealing with the real issue that is causing you to stay in this relationship, right? And remember, I mean, we're talking about romance, but this applies to any toxic relationship that you're in, right? Um, so what does cutting fruit look like, right? You might say, okay, so what does cutting fruit or just cutting branches look like, which most people do, right? So I'm giving you practical examples of what not dealing with the root, but trying to take off fruit and cut branches looks like, right? Because I don't want you to say, well, what she talking about root and fruit? That is not a tree, me and no branch. So I'm giving you practical examples, right, ladies? Blocking him for 2 days, right? I vex, I done. And so you block, take up your phone and you block him, right? Block. That's cutting a branch, right? That's not dealing with a root, right? What I'm gonna do is stop him and you from talking to each other on that particular social media platform for however long you decide you're going to block him until he finds some other way to communicate with you, right? That's dealing with a fruit, blocking for 2 days, right? That's it. Because, and here what's going on. You block him for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, right? Let's say you and that guy do break up, or you break up, right? Let's say he say, nah, she blocking me, I done with she, right? And you there, oh gosh, I didn't need it to end. I was just grand charging, I thought I'd block him and he'd feel a little how, and but he done with you. the root still has not been dealt with, right? And you go into another relationship, right? Your solution would be the same because you have not dealt with the root, right? Of why you keep going to these kind of men. So you're going to try to block him again and feel, but that's the solution, right? So blocking is one, saying that you're telling the person, well, I'm done not talking to them. Let's say you all live together, right? Now, remember, I'm not talking about a marriage, right? You can't block your husband. Single ladies, listen to me. Choose wisely, ladies, and take your time. Ladies, single ladies, take your time. Choose wisely, get counsel, test this person, because you can't block your husband. You can't block him. You can't ignore him for 3 days. You all live in the same house. Unless your plan is when you get married to pack your bags ever so often and go back in your mother's house, which is horrible. Where come out your mother's house in the first place? If that is your solution at the first sign of problem, you ready to pack your bag and go back in your mother's house. What are you married for? Stay home with mommy and daddy, right? So ladies, single ladies, please take off my glasses so you could look me in my eyes, right? Take your time when you're choosing your partner. You can't block him, but when it's a boyfriend and only living apart, and don't go shacking up with nobody either, right? You could not talk to him for 3 days. You can make sure your door locked, wherever. You could block him out. Can't block out your husband. All right? You can't block him on WhatsApp, not going to help. He on the bed there with you. Okay? That's just a side note for single ladies, right? So make sure you choose wisely, right? Yeah. So what I was saying, I'm trying to show you, ladies, what dealing with branches and fruit looks like as opposed to root. And so blocking, leaving, something that people do, right? I have recognized this in counseling people a lot, right? They talk to so many people about their issue because it's been happening over and over. After a while, they say, okay, I'm going to get help, but they're ashamed to go back to the same people. So you dealing with just the fruit of cutting off a branch is going and looking for somebody new to talk to. Somebody that don't know your issue, somebody that don't know you. Listen, I just know when people talking to me, and it's because they know I don't know them. I don't know their history. I really don't know who at fault. And so I have to take their word for it, right? Which, thank God for discernment and the Holy Spirit. Sometimes they could tell, right? But you're talking to people in hope that somebody gonna tell you something that you really want to hear, rather than dealing with the root, right? Which is inside. So hopefully you bounce up somebody who tell you the truth and say, hey, it's you had to deal with here, right? I'm not trying to fix the man. So that's what dealing with fruit looks like. Once it's something you're doing on the outside, externally, ladies, you're not dealing with the root, right? The root is the cause and the fruit is the symptom. The fruit is what you see, right? So the fruit of this bad toxic relationship is what you see, but the root is what is causing it, right? So the fruit is what you see. It's a dysfunctional behavior. It is what we present to the world around us, right? The root is a belief that empowers the symptom. Sorry. Right. The root is a belief that empowers the symptom and that keeps you going back, right? So it's a root belief that you have that actually empowers the dysfunction that we see. It's something that you believe inside, something that is making you think, ladies, or believe that the lifestyle that you're living with this person, the dysfunction, the back and forth, the breaking up, the making up, allowing him to cheat on you and taking him back, even though people telling you, yes, he cheating, yes, he would, and you still blocking it out. It's something that you believe in your heart that is allowing you to accept that, right? And so that is what we have to deal with, that root, right? Without the root of a situation, the fruit is going to die. You wouldn't have to do much. So when you deal with that thing in your heart, that belief that is causing you to continue to take abuse, or continue to allow a man to cheat on you, or continue to allow a man to be abusive, that you okay with a man cussing you, there is a core belief that is erroneous, something that you believe that is not right. And you have that belief that is the root in your heart that we have to deal with, ladies, right? Because from the time the root is dealt with, you will automatically, it's like when it's pulled up and dealt with. But when you take out that lie and that thing that you believe that caused you to stay in that situation, you have to replace it with truth, which I would get to, right? You would automatically start to make more healthy choices. You'd find that your next relationship, the person is, you're gonna choose differently. So it's not a matter, because I hear many women say, how these men finding me, boy, like them is come and look for me. That's actually no. You are choosing based on something that you believe about yourself. You think that it's acceptable, that you should accept that. And how I should say, like you would talk to another woman, and when you tell them, girl, he cussed me up or he do this or that, and they would be like, what? They'd be like shocked that you actually still in the relationship. Like they can't even imagine staying around somebody like that. And for you, it's just your thing is he would change, man, right? But if you have self-worth, ladies, and self-confidence, there are certain things you will never tolerate in a relationship. If you have proper self-worth, never tolerate, right? And sometimes you only realize how dysfunctional you really are when sometimes you speak to somebody who has a healthy lifestyle and who has a sense of self-worth, and you realize that, wait, now why? How come it's so easy for her to walk away from this relationship and I feel I need to stay, right? It's because of something that you believe in your heart about yourself, and it's a lie, right? I believe that most women, ladies, listen, I believe that most women keep going back to unhealthy, toxic relationships because they lack self-worth and they're actually codependent on that person. They believe that that person can give them something, whether tangible or emotional or whatever it is, that they cannot obtain by themselves. You keep going back because you feel you need something from that person. You keep going back because your sense of worth is tied to that man somehow. Even though it might be abusive, even though it might be toxic, even though he don't treat you all that good, sometimes the only good treatment you get is when things reach rock bottom. Because he don't want you to leave, he would start to do the things that he knows that you like and appreciate, which is really manipulation. That's not love. That's just to keep you in a toxic relationship, right? And so my what this is, I believe this is all my heart, that the core reason why women are stuck in relationships for years, in cycles for years, accepting substandard love, or I can't even call it love, it's because of their self-worth, right? Because something is making you think, well, I deserve this. This is acceptable when it actually isn't acceptable, right? So I said, let me read this over. Most women keep going back to toxic, unhealthy relationships because they lack self-worth or they are codependent on that person. They believe that that person they can meet a need, whether it's an emotional need, some kind of tangible need, that you of yourself, if you were single and without that man, that you would not be able to fulfill that need. That keeps a woman codependent. And vice versa, but I talking to women tonight, so I ain't had to go into the men. Although I know some men probably listening, or they need to organize all their stuff and get all their own session together, right? But I talking to the woman, but it works both ways, right? If you feel that this person is fulfilling some kind of need or void in you, it is going to be very difficult, ladies, for you to let him go. If your self-worth is tied to him, if having the love of a man makes you feel that has increased your self-worth, makes you feel like, okay, I having the love of a man makes you feel, okay, so I am lovable. It's like, so hey, somebody wants me. So you have this feeling, wait, somebody wants me. So even though it might be a kind of toxic one, he wants me, but he's pitched me around now and again. He's horned me now and again, but still, at least he still wants me. At least I have some value to him, even though it might just be sex, or maybe it's just my cooking, right? Ladies, if your thinking is like that, it is flawed and it comes from a core belief that is not serving you well in your life. That belief is actually causing you hurt and keeping you in unhealthy cycles. And again, this is not only for romantic relationships, this works for even parents and children, bosses, right? Nobody keeping you in your job. If your boss abusive, who keeping you there? Money keeping you there? Listen, God created all of us. He loves us. He gave us an identity. He gives us gifts. He gives us talent. Many times we neglect God in our lives and we think that we have to do it on our own, right? You don't have to take abuse from anybody. I'm talking verbal abuse, emotional, right? Whether it's your boss, your parents, whatever, right? You can move on, come out, quit your job. If your boss cussing you up every day, telling you you're incompetent, and you going home feeling like you have a weight on your shoulder every day, quit the job, trust God to find another one. I mean, I know you say, somebody saying, woman, easy for you to say, I have three children, right? But that is still a codependent relationship. You feel that your only source of money coming from that boss, from that job. That's not true. Trust God, people. He's real. God is able to provide for you in other ways. And I mean, if you're really putting your trust in God, He's not going to let you down. But that's a faith that you have to have in God. I can't, I mean, I could tell you to do that. But you really have to believe that God will provide for you. So codependent relationships show up in different ways in your job, family, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, right? And so, yeah, right? And so let me give you a simple definition of codependency, right? It looks like, okay, it's to look to someone or even something outside of yourself to meet a need that only God or you can actually meet, right? So it's to look outside for somebody to meet a need for you that that person cannot meet. So it's like putting strain on somebody to do something emotionally for you, or sometimes even spiritually, that they cannot do, only God can do, or you can do for yourself, right? The codependent person tends to depend on others, and they depend on their approval, they seek approval, acceptance, validation as a substitute for self-worth. So the only time you actually feel like you're doing something good or that you're worth anything is when somebody praises you or when somebody validates you, right? And so you find that people who think like that, they work hard at getting people's validation. They work very hard at getting approval. They even try to become perfectionists. They want to do best. They go out of their way for people. Now, my gosh, I'm not saying going out of your way for anybody is not a good thing, right? Right? Let's put everything in context. But I'm saying if that's your only source of validation coming from somebody praising you, or from a man telling you, so the only time you feel like you worth anything, as I said before, I listed some things kind of quickly, like sex, you're cooking, because you're cleaning the house. So you find you become all those things. You say, you know what, I want to be the best for this man. So you go out of your way to, give him the things he likes or whatever. And he still, at the end of the day, he might appreciate it for a while, but still he will bring you down eventually. And you'd realize that what you end up doing is you keep working for that person affection. It's like work. You just have to keep working. Okay, I will try this, I will do this, I will do that. And you never actually feel worth anything unless that person approves you or validates you or big you up or tell you, listen, it's great. Your partner, your husband, your boyfriend, your parents, your children, they are supposed to praise you when you do something good. They're supposed to validate you. They're supposed to love you. They're supposed to big you up. Those are things you do to people that you love. So I'm not saying they're not supposed to, but ladies, that cannot be your only source of validation, because if you have lived as long as I have, which is 50 years, you would realize that you can depend on no human being to be consistent in that area. They go big you up today and small you up tomorrow, right? And so when they big you up, you big up. And so this is what codependency is. How you feel now inside and how you feel about yourself is dependent on how they feel about you on any given day. That's an emotional roller coaster, and nobody should have to live like that, right? If anybody here have children, right, from small children, is to hear that. Thank God my daughter never tell me she hates me, right? But I know of many parents whose children, Listen, you give your liver string for your children, your liver string. What is a liver string? Is that actually a body part, a organ? I don't know. But I mean, I know I've been hearing it since I was small, right? Just a side note, right? But you give your liver string for the children, right? You stay up night after night when they're sick. You sleepless nights when they were babies and stuff. And when they now start to talk, 4 years old, right? The tongue, the neighbor string, right? Yeah. It can't even talk properly, right? Because you tell them they can't go to a birthday party, or you take away a toy, or you tell them go in their room and stay in their room. I hate you, mommy. I hate you. Really? Really? You hate the source of everything you have on this earth, girl or boy, right? So even your children. So listen, ladies, it's as what I say here is a serious thing. If your self-worth is tied to how your children feel about you and what they do for you, you're in trouble. Because they go love you today and tell you tomorrow they hate you. When they tell you they hate you, they don't mean it, right? I tell you, they don't mean it. They're just emotional little beings who throw tantrums and they self-consume. Children are self-consumed, right? So they just what they want and they're saying what they want, right? But if your self-worth, if you only feel good about yourself when they tell you good things, or anybody, your husband, friend, your best friend, whoever, you will be an emotional wreck. So ladies, we have to figure out tonight how we can have self-worth in spite of any other human being. Whether you praise me or not, validate me or not, I always feel like I have worth. I always feel loved. I don't have to depend on you for that, right? We have to get to that point. If you do, ladies, watch me again. If you don't get to that point in your life where you feel that you have value on this earth, purpose, loved, validated without another human being, it's going to be, your life is going to be emotional, and you will accept things that you really shouldn't in any given relationship, even a friendship, a normal friendship, right? So a simple definition of codependence, to look to someone or something outside of yourself, outside of God, let me put that in, to meet a need that only God or you can meet, right? A relationship with God. In relation to people, right? The codependent person tends to depend on others for something that they have no right to even expect from that person, right? And let me give you an example of some of those things, because I don't want to just say, I don't want to just talk and not give you practical examples, so that, you know, because I want you to start to think and look within, right? Ladies, you can look to no human being to bring you happiness, right? To be happy inside. My husband, my child, ice cream, good food, these things bring temporary happiness and joy, right? My child does that, my husband could do that. Good food, a good lime, I had a good little lime Saturday going there. I was happy, right? I was enjoying myself. I wasn't thinking about anything else but what was happening in that moment, right? But when the music stops, right? People, the music stops and I go home. Is it that my happiness stays in the party and I go home empty, looking for the next party, looking for the next thrill, calling up my friends the next day to see if we could line the next weekend, or what I could do to distract myself from the emptiness that is really within, right? If that is your life, then listen, ladies, what I would say to you is that you really need a real relationship with God, because happiness is not something that's a burden. Listen, ladies, if you meet a man, and if this is you, I don't know if this is news for you tonight, and it's probably a lot. I don't know if it's too much. I don't know if it's sounding like burdensome. But if you're in a relationship and you tell them somebody, I want you to make me happy. This is what I want to. I want you to always make me happy. Or, you are looking for a man, yeah, to make you happy, or you think you could make a man happy all the time, right? If a man tells you that honey, you are my happiness, I can't live without you, dear. Girl, without you, girl, I feel like, girl, I. That's not a compliment. Me want no man like that. Sorry for my crudeness. I don't want no man like that telling me you live. You can't live without me? No, 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 that's too much pressure for me. I don't want that. No, because I have my bad days. I have days where I don't want to talk to you. And so if when I have my bad days, it means my bad days causing you to have bad days too. I don't want that responsibility, right? So happiness, ladies, should not be an external thing. Yes, things make us happy. And even the things, listen, ladies, God is not against you. The things that bring us pleasure. We had to eat food to live. But you know why the reason why food actually tastes good? Well, except Karaili, Shutine. Karaili, Shutine. What else is just shouldn't be food? What else shouldn't be? Okay, I'll just stick with Karaili and Shutine for now, right? But aside from those things, we need food to live, to sustain us for life, right? But there's a reason why food tastes good. Anybody want to say in the comments why food is pleasurable? Anybody? Any comments? Why do you think there's a pleasure to food? Tell me in the comments. Let me see if anybody could say. Why is food pleasurable? Because, you know, we could be eating grass every day. And let's say grass was the thing that, no. How come? How come it's tasty? That's what I mean. Why is it that, yes, it's a basic need, but it just so happens that it's a basic need that is extremely enjoyable. Well, in most cases, as I said, except for Karaili and Shutine. It's appease your hunger, no? Come again. Talk to me. I'm looking for the answer. Come, ladies. Maybe I could give a prize for this answer or not. It's tasty for you in that moment. Yes. Okay. All right. Let me make it easy for you. Without food, you would die. Yes. But there's a yes. Present. Yes. The first food came from where? Where did the first food come from? Where did the first set of food come from? Because food didn't just God. Thank you. In the Garden of Eden, the Bible says there was every fruit known unto man for them to eat, and it was free. Let me tell you something. The fruits, when God made the fruit in the garden, a lot of the fruits that were in the garden, we still eating today. And I'm sure there's some that no longer exist. I really don't know. I don't have the facts. But the fruit tastes good. They won't eat in cardboard, right? When they pick a tangerine or apple or a coconut, these things come from God, right? None of all you don't know how, nobody here know how to make a coconut or a mango or a strawberry or dasheen or Edos. None of y'all know how to do these things, right? The spices, your can, nobody. Where do those things come from? They come from the earth, they come from God, they come from trees. God is the one who put the pleasure in food, who put the taste in it. He wanted you to eat and enjoy, not only eat, right? Do you all know that we could have made babies by just doing this? God wanted us to multiply, right? He said he wants us to be fruitful and multiply. Let's say this was how we made babies, right? It's okay, go be fruitful, and you do this. Babies, woo, babies, it's a big babies come, right? No pleasure in that. I just clap in my hands, right? Who idea was sex? Who made it pleasurable? Talk to me. Who made it pleasurable? Who made sex something pleasurable? You could have make a baby all home, you know. God could have come up with all kind of plan. No, sweetheart. I'm so glad we learned it. See what? I'm so happy for this session. I'm so happy for this session. Ladies, let me enlighten you all. The ones who say man, Satan, evil, sex was all God. Nobody, Satan had nothing to do with sex. When Adam and Eve first had, when they came together, when God made Eve out of Adam, right? When God made Eve out of Adam and Adam looked at Eve, right? They were both naked. Adam said, whoa, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. I will call you woman, right? And when them get busy there, we feel, what do you think was going on? It's the same pleasure we experiencing today that they experience. It's the same process, guys. Yeah, it was the same process back then in the garden that it is now. So the pleasurable parts of sex, ladies, it's God, right? If you believe that the pleasure that comes from sex is from Satan, then why would you be doing it? I'm not going to do something that Satan made. Satan distorted sex and sexuality, right? Pornography made sex into a big evil thing. Pornography and Hollywood made sex, put the evil in sex. But the actual purity of the act of a man and a woman, a husband and a wife coming together, becoming intimate, becoming one, and then, being able to conceive, that was all God. The pleasure in it, ladies, that's all God, right? Food, the pleasure in that, all God, right? Not, it's not Satan, right? So how did I get there? I was talking about happiness. I was talking about happiness and not looking to somebody on the outside for happiness, right? Somebody gonna have to take me back to how I got there. I was talking about not depending on anybody for happiness, that happiness could only come from God. Right. I started saying that. I'm trying to show you all that actually the things that God has given us naturally on the earth, right? If you look around at the trees, the sun, the stars, anybody here love the ocean, love to go to the beach, right? Anybody love the beach, love the ocean, you love the sunset, you love a beautiful day. Some people love greenery, right? All of that was God, ladies. Everything that is good and pleasurable, it comes from God. God actually wants to bless you. God is not against you. So happiness, God wants you to be happy, right? He placed a lot of things on this earth so that you can be happy and fulfilled, right? Without another human being. But God also saw that it wasn't good for man to be alone. So he made another human being, Eve, for Adam, so that they could relate to each other and, have babies and multiply and be fruitful on the earth, right? But the happiness that most human beings are looking for and seeking after and yearning for, that, some people say they want to feel happy, or nobody doesn't want to be happy. You want to know that you can be happy all the time. And happiness does not mean, ladies, that I'm walking around smiling. I'm happy, oh my gosh, every day, oh my gosh, I'm a happy person. Every time you see me, I'm like, I'm happy. Your happiness could be within. It's a stillness, it's a peace in a that comes from an assurance that you know that God is with you and that he loves you, right? And so I want to get us to a place where you are dependent on these things, from you're dependent on God for these things, right? And so these are, let me don't get sidetracked, right? These are things that you cannot look outside for, that you have to have within. Happiness is something you cannot try to get from a man. Because if your happiness is dependent on him, then your happiness would be like this. Okay? Down today, up tomorrow, down today, roller coaster. You don't want that. You cannot depend on any other human being for self-worth and self-love. You cannot. Can't. You can't. Ladies, I want to tell you so bad that you could depend on your parents to build you up and make you feel, like you're worth something, that you have purpose, but have some real out of time and parents out. Real out of time. Right? They're parents who, no matter what you do, it's never good enough. No matter what you do, it's not good enough. They pull you down, they call you names, they compare you, they're not satisfied. They are only happy with you and they only praise you. And the only time you get love from some parents is when you achieve something grand. You get an A, you get an A plus, something like. Other than that, you are nothing. So for them, once you perform, you're good. But if you just average, or you just there, let's say it's 4 children, and they have one that is outstanding academically or has some great talent that is bringing attention to the family. Let's say you could play piano great, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, your daughter's the best pianist I've ever seen. Oh my gosh, she's the best. And so you're real into that child. But the one who just average, yeah, is whatever. What's your name? Oh yeah, that's my child. That's the middle one, right? So you can't depend on your parents for yourself, or for your self-love, right? Worse yet, a man. Worse yet, a man. Right, ladies? You can't depend on them for your happiness, your self-worth, self-love. You can't depend on a man to keep you content. Contentment is something that only God could give you. And so to feel content means that even in the times in your life when you know things are not going perfect, not as you would like, let's say you're in a place of transition, you don't have a job right now, but you're looking for a job. And so that might be, nobody wants to be in that position because you want to be making money and stuff, but it doesn't make you miserable. And you don't think for 1 minute that because I'm jobless, it means I'm worthless. So because Jane got a job in Ernst & Young and I can't get a job, I am somehow worth less than she is. That's where you're going wrong. Your self-worth is not supposed to be tied to your achievements, right? And so being content means that even though I know I'm in a transitional period in my life, I'm moving from point A to B. I know this is not where I want to be. You are still able to be content in that you ain't beaten up, you ain't crying every day, you ain't feeling like you're not worth anything. You know who you are, you know what your worth is, and you know you're going somewhere. Son, I'm telling all you, I don't know, only God could do that for you. He did it for me, and I'm telling you, he could do it for you, right? And the fourth one, now remember, these are things that you cannot look for from any man, right? Anybody, is peace of mind. Ladies, that is a priceless thing. Peace of mind, to be able to hit my pillow in the night and have pleasant thoughts or fall asleep one time and not be tossing and turning with turmoil and thoughts and regret and hate and bitterness or who do me this and what and that. You know, your mind, you're just tormented. Peace of mind is priceless. And peace of mind, having peace of mind does not mean I have a perfect life. It means in the midst of trials, in the midst of situations, I am not going to let them steal my peace, because my peace does not come from having a perfect environment. My peace does not come from having a man treat me perfectly well all the time, right? News flash, ladies, right? Some of y'all, when you're single, your one and only quest in life is to find a man to love you and marry you, to give you children and you're good. Oh my gosh, I did it. I got married and I had 2 kids and we got a house. I did it. And then when you get married, you realize, oh wait now, this man, he's not perfect. And there are times where that very man is going to make you feel unloved. And he's not going to be able to meet all your emotional needs. He's not going to be able to do it. Right. And so if you don't have a peace within and a contentment and self-worth and love and happiness within that can only come from God, ladies, you are always going to be miserable. You will always need something to pick you up, right? Which is how people end up being every weekend in a party. In fact, every day they had to go somewhere and take a drink with a friend. They had to drink alcohol to feel better, to enjoy themselves. They had a line, they have something. You're going to always be looking for something to fill the void in the times where the people who you think should love you are actually, you feel unloved by them. You're not going to be able to just be in a still place and say, okay, this is not the perfect ideal situation right now, but it's not gonna get me to a place where I start to feel like, okay, it's my fault, or start a self-doubt, or start to even feel like maybe I'm not worthy of love, maybe nobody can really love me, maybe I'm the problem, right? So ladies, right, I'm going to have to continue next week, right? Because I want to be able to hear from you all. But I want to say the 4 things again, right? Remember how we got here? We were talking about codependency, and lack of self-worth, right? To me, are the number 2 things that cause people to stay in unhealthy relationships. You are looking to this other human being to fulfill you in areas of your life that they cannot. It's impossible. I want you to think for a minute, ladies, these things that you are looking for from a man to give you, sometimes you of yourself know you can't give that to any other human being. You cannot be somebody's source of happiness because you yourself are not always happy. You cannot be the source of somebody's self-worth. You are not perfect. Sometimes you might say things that, hurt them, right? So if you know to yourself you can't do it, you are not perfect, then why look to another human being to fulfill these things in your life, right? And so these major things that I said, never look for a man to do, is for happiness, self-worth, contentment in times of, let's say, loneliness or hurt, peace of mind, right? Now I want to make myself clear, because people will say, well, what I'm going to get married for if the man can't make me happy, if he can't build up my self-esteem a little bit, if he... I'm not saying that. Of course, I might say that. Of course, somebody who loves you is supposed to do these things. But they are flawed. Your husband, your boyfriend, your father, your mother, your child, these are flawed human beings who themselves are still looking to God to meet certain needs. So you cannot depend on them. The only person that I know that has an endless source of happiness, endless source of love and words and contentment, the only person I know like that is God. It will never run out. There's no time I could go to God and I won't feel refreshed. I won't feel renewed. I know for some of y'all, even having a relationship with God is a bit difficult, because you don't even see God as a source of love. Because many times, unfortunately, we kind of mirror God to our parents, and we think that some of us, our experience as children wasn't good. And so love is something you actually never really experience in its pure form. And so when people tell you, look to God as your father, you think about your father, and automatically your thoughts are like, oh, think of God as father, okay? My father he was crappy, he was drunk, he used to beat us, he used to cuss me. You know what I mean? And so you have to take yourself to a place now where you're saying, okay, my father was a flawed human being. But you have to come to a place where you believe that who God says he is, that his love is unconditional, that his love is pure, and that your word could only be found in him. And so, ladies, I have a lot more to go through, but I don't want to rush it. So there is going to be a part 2 to this, right? I want to ask a question, ladies, right? I was going to do this at the end, but I'll still do it next week. But I want to ask you a question. Based on what you've been hearing me say, right? I've been talking about self-worth and finding your worth in God, and only place you can get that source, your source of happiness should be God, because he's limitless, right? In his resources and who he is. And you might be listening to me and saying, well, I don't know God that way. I've never had that type of relationship with God. I've never even, when I was talking about God being the source of pleasure, some of you were like, really? I didn't even see God that way. But listen, guys, I'm telling you, God is not against you. He wants you to be blessed and happy, right? If you look at the world and how beautifully it was made and the things that are natural, you'd realize that God loves us, and that everything he actually gave us, it's for our pleasure, so that we would live, we'd be sustained, yes, but we'd also have pleasure, right? So I want to ask ladies tonight simply, if you um don't know God in this way, and you realize you saying to yourself, I would like to know God in this way. I want to experience God in this way. I've never experienced God like this. And if this is something that I could do, I've realized I've been in error in my thinking where God is concerned. I want to know God in a different way. I want to experience it, because you never have. Is there anybody on the call like that who would say that based on what I've said, you realize maybe I really don't know God. Maybe I have a wrong perception of God and who he is, right? So Lily says yes. Donna says yes. If there's anybody else on the call, Asha says she wants to take that journey. Beautiful. And I love the way you say that, because literally it is a journey.